My name is Dr. Mark Joseph O'Connell. This is a reading from my book, Lilac Time at the Rodeo, Stories of Identity, AIDS, and Fashion. A photo. The two men pictured in the photograph are Calvin Klein and Chester Weinberg. Klein is much taller than Weinberg and stands behind him, his arm casually draped over his friend's shoulder as he playfully rubs his head. It is not a sexy or innuendo-inflected photo by any means. It looks like Klein is ready to give Chester a bare knuckle to pate noogie. The body language is very relaxed. They could be brothers, they could be lovers. They could be gay, they could just as easily be straight. They certainly seem to be best buddies. It doesn't matter really, as the ideal word to describe the vibe in this photo is camaraderie. They are both laughing and obviously having fun in this photograph. Now, you ask me, I know Calvin, but who's Chester? So, let me tell you a bit about him. Chester Weinberg was a lifelong New Yorker, and his career was entirely dedicated to fashion. As recounted by Bernardine Morris in her excellent Fashion Makers text, Chester Weinberg was a, quote, poor boy from Brooklyn who knew nothing of the world of fashion until he started high school, end quote. Described as a small wispy boy, Weinberg attended the High School of Music and Art when he was not yet even in his teens. Of his time at the High School of Music and Art, Weinberg recalled, quote, "That's when I saw my first Claire McCardell dress." And that is my illustration of a Claire McCardell dress. He also saw many other historical fashion objects, and for him, that introduction to fashion was, quote, mind-blowing. He recognized the subsequent redirection of his interests, quote, "It was art that I was interested in then, when I had this exposure. I realized for the first time that instead of being the head of the art department in a local high school, I could become a fashion designer." End quote. He then went on to study fashion at Parsons. Barely 16 when he started college, he was remembered as a brilliant student. Years later, he was still referred to as, quote, "my baby" by Ann Key, who was one of his professors and later ran the illustrious fashion department of Parsons. He graduated in 1951, first in his class. Then it was time for the apprenticeship. Weinberg entered the fashion industry during the 1950s, 7th Avenue rag trade era. American industry was gearing up to supply the post-war prosperity of 50s America. It was high volume, high pressure. Weinberg slugged away in 7th Avenue's back rooms, striving always to get into higher-priced houses so he could work with better fabrics and try more inventive designs, according to Morris. Weinberg recalled some highlights of this era, quote, "I went to Europe. I saw Balenciaga. I was invited to Jack Fat's parties, danced with Ginger Rogers at Schiaparelli. There were also challenges, quote, I was discouraged because American designers, including me, were copying Europe. I wanted the American thing to begin to happen. American design was not yet valued. That would soon change."